You're listening to Tripod, the Tricycle Creative podcast, produced for anyone interested in being a better digital and content marketer. Host Ross Erosion is a marketing coach, content creator, and entrepreneur who brings you helpful tips, social media updates, inspiring interviews, and his own unique perspective on how to tell your story and grow your business. So sit back, relax, and let's get pedaling.
David J. Neff, serial entrepreneur. He's co-founder of Weird Home Store and most notably, frequent guest on Tripod. 2020 was quite a year to have a live event business like Weird Home Store, and we actually talked about that at length in a previous episode of Tripod, so you can check that out. In this episode, we're talking about, well, first, how much of a scaredy cat I am with horror films, why you must test and learn as a creative business owner, and a simple way to measure your successes and figure out what you should change. We pick up this conversation already in progress. It's just so you know, this is only audio. I just get to see. Yeah. Just so this will be just audio. We just get the luxury of seeing each other during this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
My visual jokes are wasted then.
Yes. No, feel free to do them. I'll just let them. I'll play crickets when you play them. So, thank you for coming back. I feel like at this point, David, you do need to have like a punch card. Like you have accumulated enough guest spots with me that I think now you are eligible for a free topping on your ice cream. So the question everyone wants to know, what would be the free topping that you would get on your ice cream?
One of these two, since you're obviously being cheap with me and only allowing me to have one topping, gummy bears, although that's pretty horrible with most ice cream, or Butterfinger bites.
Yeah, I think you've already lost our audience with the gummy bears, so that's a shame. Most of them have already tuned out and said the life choices this man has made, David J. Neff.
Amen.
Are terrible life choices because the gummy bears then get cold and then you got a solid thing going on. I'm with you on what was the other one? When you said it, I was like, yeah, that's the winner. What was it?
Butterfinger.
Butterfinger. Okay. I was going to say Reese's Cups, but Butterfingers are pretty good too. Well, good choices. And I guess it makes sense we talk a little bit of candy because we are recording this, spoiler alert, on is technically today All Hallows Eve, or is technically tomorrow All Hallows Eve?
Tomorrow, for sure.
Tomorrow, which is Halloween. So we're recording this on Halloween Eve.
That's right. You can count this for like, get your yard in order, get your spooky music, listen to some John Carpenter. Apparently, if you're Ross, you just watch Hocus Pocus.
That
PG
I don't like
rated Disney film is the extent of your horror movies.
Scary movies.
Just thought I'd call that out for your audience.
Let me be fair. I will watch the scary movies I've already seen again because I know what happens. So then, The Thing. I love The Thing. Isn't that a John Carpenter? That's a John Carpenter, isn't it?
Yeah,
fantastic film. Love it. Maybe I'll watch that.
There you go.
So, you were recommending another one though. Before we really get into the heavy subjects we're going to get into, what was the other movie that you recommended?
It Follows.
Yes,
is not only a great movie by some indie filmmakers that is scary and weird and strange and wonderfully horrifying. It also just has a fantastic soundtrack by I think another duo of electronic music folks, and I don't know if they've ever actually put anything else out. They just came out
kind of like
soundtrack.
Stranger Things, like how the guys who did Stranger Things kind of like elevated it and they became a big deal and a big act. When you said It Follows, I don't know why this came to mind. This is going to give you a little peek behind the curtain in my brain, which is probably dangerous. Sure. But I was thinking, that could be like a rom-com indie film, which takes the story of it a different direction. Like It as a lovable character, he doesn't understand why he can't find love,
right?
Just a lovable clown.
He lives with Matthew McConaughey.
Yes.
And he's trying to date Kate Hudson.
He follows them. He starts off as a stalker. You see, that's how it like, but it's like you don't like, you're not totally creeped out by him. He has like some redeeming qualities about him.
Yeah, I think a killer clown that lives in the sewers, Ross, is not going to be a good romantic lead for that movie.
I wanted to have you on this podcast because I am looking for producers and funders. So I felt like this is the biggest trap, the best way to get you. So we'll talk about that later. I digress.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
I'll
going
get you
to
on board.
notes on that script.
Fantastic.
Just so you know.
I look forward to the complete rewrite. So thank you for being on this 2020 Rewind. David J. Neff, co-founder of Weird Homes Tour. I suppose, because you are a serial entrepreneur, to be fair, we will probably be kind of talking mostly about Weird Homes Tour. Am I correct?
Sure,
when we kind of chat a little bit today? But I'm sure you have learnings from some of your other businesses that'll spill over. And so as we talk about 2020, I want to start with the good, because I think so many people feel like there's not as much of it. What's one good thing that happened to you and or your business? And again, those are usually intertwined. Your business in 2020.
Yeah, I think so. You know, the Weird Homes Tour is a live event business, as you can imagine. It's in the name. We do live tours all over the United States: Austin, Houston, New Orleans, Detroit, Portland. And we were adding San Francisco this year. We were adding San Antonio this year. And then all this stuff happened. I remember being on a flight for an e-commerce client and kind of hearing about it. And then I remember on the way back being like, I'm going to wear gloves on this flight back, like in the space of a week, and reading all the news and seeing everything and noticing the airport was a lot emptier. The flight was full, but the airport was definitely emptier, and thinking like, oh, this is a thing, right? This is going to be big. And then never having traveled again after that, right? For any of my kind of e-commerce clients. And so for me, I think we knew as a live events business, like, okay, you know what? We're going to move it, right? Let's look at July. That
should be fine. That should be plenty.
Let's look at September. Yeah. Let's look at October. And eventually we're like, we're going to do this thing in video. So I think a positive that came out of that is, number one, business is still there. We're able to get a PPP loan. We were able to get a loan from the SBA. I think it made us work better as a team because we had a really hard pivot. As the business owner, as the CEO, my wife, the founder, Kevin Shaw, who's our managing director, people like you who are helping us a lot with, Facebook advertising and how to shoot and how to film and thinking about YouTube and optimization on YouTube. We all came together more so than we normally did. And I think we reached out and said, is this thing going to die? No. This is, people's full-time job, and we have vendors and we have folks who are doing our website, all the vendors and other people. Everyone came together. So I think that come together thing was really strong here because, Ross, you could have been like, good luck with these guys. My
how I work with my clients.
Exactly
how I work.
Client who does a real estate is actually doing just fine. So let me just keep the client who does the real estate, or whatever it might be. Right?
You know what I'll say to that though, and I think you can appreciate this. I don't think anyone goes into being starting a business, and I'll say the fancy word, an entrepreneur, who at first sign of danger runs away.
Yeah, they'd be
honestly,
gone.
honestly, that's not the cloth that we are cut from.
That's
so, right. When this started, it's so weird that story you told about like being on the flight and then almost like a week later, the world was becoming a different place. I was listening to, I love the podcast. It's called, I think it's called In the Steam Room. It's like Charles Barkley, and it's a basketball podcast, but nonetheless, I was listening to an episode pre-COVID, and they're talking about like, oh, I'll see you at the NBA finals, and it was like 2 or 3 episodes later, it's like, oh, that's not. So just hearing you tell that story is very interesting of like, just the, how the world seemed to turn kind of so quickly. Time has been such a weird thing to deal with in 2020.
That's right.
It seems like there's an abundance of it, but at the same time, you look up and you're like, where did the last month go?
That's right. And
It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, again, as entrepreneurs, you got to have that thick skin.
That's right. And I feel for us, especially as a live events business, we looked around and saw bars. We saw music venues. We saw people just closing down permanently. So I think the positive is that, like, we all came together. We built a strategy. I'm such a big fan of objectives, SMART goals, like making sure you have a quarterly plan, making sure if you have a new business idea, you're going to build a lean canvas. And so we just did all that and took what we built for 2020 and threw it out the window and redid it for 2020 of like, this is the plan. And then I think the other big positive for our business that I would say to anybody listening is like, when's the last time you really looked at video as a strategy? Because we had to, right? We had, sure, every good business has a 2-minute video, maybe explaining that they do tree trimming or they do beekeeping or they create gold skeletons they sell at Halloween, right? And so, and we had that, right? We had a little tour of what one of our tours looked like. But instead, we went hardcore into video to be like, you know what? We're really going to take the time to build out a video strategy. And, Ross, you were there. We were like, what will people pay for it? Will people pay for pre-recorded? Will people pay for a masterclass on Airbnb behind a paywall? Will people just want to watch stuff for free on YouTube? Do we have to put advertising behind it? Do we not put advertising behind it?
And I think I can sit here safely, and I think you would be comfortable with this to say we're closer to answers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we still don't have the answers. And that's one thing that it was said to me by a fellow agency owner, and I like to pass it along. And it is that marketing doesn't necessarily solve problems. It illuminates them.
Yeah.
And I think no more and never has that been more true than in 2020. And particularly with Weird Home Store. We have tried and continue to try a lot of things, but we do it with strategy. That's, I think, the thing is like, we're going to try this out, then we're going to evaluate it, and we're going to adjust course at that point. That's the way that you have success in kind of like the quote unquote fail fast method that I think Google kind of popularized, but some people don't love to throw the word fail around, but I think it's just iterate fast, right? We did a couple tours.
It's test and learn.
Yeah.
Right? It's
test and learn.
And by the way, the people who don't like to throw fail around, like, you're not living your life right. And they can come at me in the comments if they don't like that, right? You will launch things. They will fail.
Totally.
And I think, our big thing was we recorded some home tours. We put them behind a paywall. We did some master classes. We put them behind a paywall. And guess what? Nobody wanted to do that. What did people want to pay for? They pay $15, $25, even $35 to actually watch a live tour of people exploring, people doing things. Some guy going down a slide into a pool when nobody expected it, or a whale coming around the corner, some guy in a costume. And I think
great.
there was just this interest of like, okay, what are we testing? We're testing price. We're testing recorded versus pre-recorded, and we're testing content. And, test and learn is a core tenet of my business. It's a core tenet of any entrepreneurial thing that I'll do. And so for us, we just were testing all those variables to see what worked. And I think a successful thing that came out of that was like, you know what it is? It is charging for live events because people are digging that and it's unexpected. Partnerships with people like our partnership with Atlas Obscura, which, by the way, happened in the middle of all this pandemic stuff. And also, people will watch it on YouTube, and over time we'll earn a right to have ad revenue added to that. And that'll be an ongoing stream. And those were like 3 big things that came out of a video strategy, right?
I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but my next question was going to be about the challenges that you've had we've touched on it, but Is there another point or another thing that even you'd want to bring up as far as the challenges that 2020 has posed to Weird Homes Tour?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we don't just have one audience. I don't, make gold skeletons and then sell them on Amazon. I wish the business model was that simple.
You should
Instead,
be buying from yourself. Don't kid yourself.
I wish our business model was that simple. What we have is almost a marketplace of we have to go and find people who have strange, unusual, exciting homes who want to open them for other people to see them. And then we have to find an audience of people who want to buy a ticket and connect those folks, right? I mean, I wouldn't say we're a marketplace or anything kind of like that. So we were challenged by saying, hey, homeowners, do you want to do this thing live for a time when we thought we would come out of this and people could go live? And then we were challenged by like, hey, guys, guess what? We're not going to do it live. So do you want somebody in your home filming or do you want to film it yourself? Okay, do you want to film it yourself? Gosh, here's our tips and tricks and watch this video and or edit it behind the scenes, things like that. So our homeowners and then also, by the way, caring a lot because they're our friends, they're our family, they're our community. These are people that we've known for 7 or 8 years now that open their homes every year and recommend us and help us find new people as well, right?
I think that's something, again, you guys are experiential. And yeah, you're right. The challenges were, I mean, weirdly enough, kind of like at 2 points, you had choke points at 2 spots. Cause it's not like, to your point, it's not like you sell shoes and it moves that easy. It was like, not that that's easy, but nonetheless, that you had people who, you had to either, get them okay with weirdos like me, just the one weirdo coming into their home, right? To be a host, that kind of thing. Or getting them comfy to a point where they could work with you to kind of host their own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would even say as the one of the many talented hosts, people involved with your, like, even myself as the host, like we had to work through like, okay, like I need to be comfy with it too.
Sure, right.
I think, I mean, I don't need to tell you, I already told you this, but from the audience, it's like, that was kind of scary for me too. I was totally fine and comfortable with isolation for safety. And, but going into it, I felt totally comfortable with how we set everything up and the homeowners, making sure that there was this level of comfort and safety for everyone involved and responsibility. And then you have all that, and we're not even at the customer yet. Right. We needed to get all those ducks in a row before we could then get into the obstacle that was selling it. Right. Yeah. I mean, there were multiple kind of like challenges. And I think that, I worked with you guys directly. So your team definitely stepped it up. And I think it was a major kudos to the passion and commitment, even that the homeowners had, that they wanted to continue to be involved. And
that's right. And we had plenty of homeowners that were like, no, not this year.
Sure.
And hey, I get it. I totally get it. And then we had people
who were like, because of me or because of the,
and then we had plenty of people who were like, hey, this sounds cool. We've never done this before in San Francisco. And I think of the Greg Angelo Museum and you guys who are listening to this, Google Greg Angelo Museum or go to weirdhomestour.com to find out more. And they were like, this is weird for us too, but you know what? We have this amazing house. It's featured on Netflix, Insider, all these different channels. And we want to open it up and we want people to see it. So it was interesting. And it's also forced us to almost add a home a week. I think we have some 40 homes we've explored this year, which is almost more than we ever had doing physical tours. So yeah, it's been a challenge and a positive.
Yeah, it's been, I think, a shift, right? Which is very common. So we're talking about a lot of these changes, shifts that you made, you continue to make. I say on the fly, but that you continue to make. But what comes to mind or what pops into your mind when I ask you, like, what changes or improvements do you see or do you want to make to the business for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for us, I think 2021 is going to be more of the same. I think for us, we're going to have to really just adapt and change and figure out the virtual format. I think there's other things we could be selling as a business and doubling down on. We have a coffee table book. So how do we get that out more? How do we advertise and maybe double down on our YouTube channel and providing content and getting content out in front of people and growing our subscriber base? Because I firmly think in 2021, we're still not going to be able to have physical events. So I think we're going to have to get really good. We're going to have 2 to 3 maybe large scale virtual events or maybe one a month, which would be 12, which is a lot to advertise and plan for, that we just sell tickets to ourselves. And then obviously partner up with people like Atlas Obscura. Amazon has an experiences product now that we've been looking into with the folks at Amazon to see, is that right for us? Is that right for our audience? So there's lots of interesting things going on in the virtual bespoke events space. But are any of them making money? Are any of them supporting 10, 15, 30 employees? Not that we're that big. I can't see a single one that's doing that.
Yeah.
And, Burning Man went virtual this year and people just rose up and did not like it. It had so much criticism and things.
I remember you sharing that article, and maybe to the point that I'm an old man and not as tied into Burning Man.
I know you are there.
Even though I was in the music industry, I would be totally guessing when Burning Man happens. So it has happened.
That's correct.
And people not so
I think it's just, it's hard.
Is it different to trip acid at home than it is out in the field?
By yourself? I feel that, it's a hard thing to pull off, right? Yeah. And then when you do see stuff like the New York Times is moving into events and virtual events. So what am I competing with the New York Times now as well, who has a lot more money and a lot more budget? And then when you do see virtual events, you see free stuff. Like, we're going to do this free concert on Thursday night. We're going to put your favorite DJ up, brought to you by Bacardi or whatever it is. So it's interesting because, again, there's no virtual events association you can go and join and learn how to do this, right? We're all testing and we're all learning.
Yeah. So my last question, topic, if you will, is pretty wide open, but I there's a reason I did that, because I want to give people the flexibility. So I want to ask, what recommendations do you have for the creative business owner out there? Maybe they've suffered through 2020. Maybe they have survived maybe they flourished in 2020. Maybe they are thinking about starting their business in 2021. As someone who is a serial entrepreneur, what recommendations do you have? Or maybe just from a straight up chill personal perspective, like, oh, this is a great show to watch. This is a great album to listen to. Sure. What recommendations do you have for people from 2020?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like as you think about your creative business in 2021, my favorite tool is something just called Lean Canvas. So Google Lean Canvas, look it up, fill it out for your business. It's going to ask you about your opportunities, your audiences, your spend. It's going to ask you a bunch of strategic questions. And it's just an organizing format. I think that's so important. I think number 2, if you can afford it, go out, get somebody like Ross. Find somebody just like that who will actually help you think about your strategy. Because it's the perfect time in November, December to actually sit down, and your business might be going crazy because it's the end of the year and you have 280% e-commerce growth and you think everything's fine. But guess what? That's going to bounce back down. That is the pandemic bump when it comes to e-commerce. Or you might have a live events business, or you might, sell yoga pants or whatever the heck it is. But it's the perfect time to sit down, fill out a lean canvas, and think really hard about your business. And then I think too, maybe you used to do 4 quarters worth of goals. If you haven't gone through a good, solid goal planning exercise, now is the time. My wife's going through that. She owns 2 salons here in town, and she's going through her quarter 1 goals for 2021, her quarter 2 goals for 2021. And then you know what? Maybe don't do 3 and 4 just yet, since we have kind of no idea what a garbage fire 2021 might be, or it might be a beautiful rainbow, right? Who knows? So for me, start that planning now. Always make sure you have goals and numbers you're tracking to. I love MIT Sloan has something called FAST goals. And you guys can look up what that acronym means. But you can think of flexible is the F, transparent is the T. So it's not just you, it's other people in your small business understand what the goals are motivated by them. So spend a chunk of time on that lean canvas and those goals. And
I love that you brought that up, because one of the other people that I have interviewed already, and those of you listening, you can check this episode out with Tara Johnson. We were talking about goal setting here, at the end of the year, right? And obviously it makes the most sense because it's year's ending. This is the time. And she was talking about, her goals in, November, December. And I was talking to her and I was just saying, I agree with you. I think it's so important to do that as a small business, even if they kind of change. And now is actually a really good time to do that. And if you're listening to this, whenever now is, if you haven't done it, just know now is the time if you haven't done it, because, writing them down, capturing them again on paper, and then giving yourself even a little bit of breathing room to walk away and then come back to them. I did my goals about a month or 2 ago, and I recently went on a little bit of like a vacation, mini little getaway, a couple of days to unplug. And I came back and I looked at them kind of with fresh eyes. And I'm like, okay, I need to tweak them just a little bit. But I think that's a good exercise to do. But you can't get there. Much like we were talking about earlier, iteration and improvement. You can't get there if you don't start somewhere, right? And so I am all in with you when you're talking about goal setting. And guess what? If you're out there and you haven't done that, or it's a scary thing, it's okay if they change. And in fact, they probably will change. But it's just it's the exercise. It's the behavior, if you will, of, you hear about this with athletes, right? They visualize, right? Making a free throw, making a shot, right? A whole play, how it works out, and I'm just a big believer in that when it comes to like almost like putting it forth into reality, right? The fact that you're thinking about it, you're documenting it, you're making it just that much more real, and I think that's very valuable. The one other thing I wanted to bring up that I actually really liked that we did for Weird Homes Tour is the Delta Plus.
Yeah. Plus Delta.
It's super simple, but do you want to talk just real quick about what that is? Because I thought it was so simple, but it's so impactful.
Happy to do it. And I think before I do that too, I just want to give people listening 2 goals that they should have, and they can throw them in the dumpster or they can keep them. And it's something I've been thinking a lot too. Number 1 is just, no matter the size of your business, PTO self-care. What are you doing around allowing your employees or yourself to take time as needed and have some self-care time? Everybody with kids, without kids, with sick parents, with a sick dog, they're sick themselves. They're working some 60-hour week because they don't know how to shut their computer lid at the end of the day of their laptop or close down. Think about either, new days you give off to people. Think about flexible work weeks. Maybe you're working 9 days every 2 weeks instead of 10 days every 2 weeks. but just put that as a goal to re-examine how you're doing PTO, paid time off, or self-care for your employees. And then number two, and I'm lucky enough to be on the Moody College of Communication at UT's advisory board. And we had a great session today on diversity and inclusion, right? And so everyone needs a diversity and inclusion goal for 2021, no matter who's in the office, who's not in the office, who your local people are, what the presidential election looks like as we sit here at Halloween time. I want people to think about what happened this year and all of the upheaval and change we've seen. And great, don't just internalize that. What is your business doing about that? Look at your About Us page on your website and have a real talk with yourself about who you're hiring, how you're supporting those people, and what it looks like. So I'll just throw those out there as two goals that I think everybody should add. And, you might have 5 on top of that. You might just have 2 other ones. As Ross just said, it's all good, right? Be flexible and don't be too hard on yourself. And then I think the thing Ross mentioned, which is super interesting, is over time, where I work, and I do this at the Weird Homes Tour, is when we get done with an event or a project, or it might just be some sprint you're completing as a business. Oh, we got to launch our Shopify website. Sweet, it's launched. Number one, take a damn minute to pop a champagne bottle somewhere and congratulate yourself on a win. But number two, get the people that did that work in a room or Mural or Squadcast or Zoom or whatever the hell you're using nowadays, and just say, let's do a plus delta exercise. It's a super simple project management technique to help you understand what went well and then what the deltas were. And deltas are not necessarily gosh, I wish that guy wouldn't have gone down that slide into the pool. The delta is man, we should have had him do that 7 more times, right? Deltas are things you want to change. So pluses are things that went well. Deltas are what you would change the next time you launch a new website. And I think Ross brings it up because I usually just do that internally, but for the first time this year, and since Ross is basically part of the family at this point, we said, you know what? Hey, Ross, as our marketing person, come to the meeting. Hey, Kristen O'Brien, as our PR person, come to the meeting. If I had a separate person, doing XYZ, I would have them come to the meeting. And the whole team does that plus delta exercise.
It was, I'm not afraid of complicated things, but I will say, as I work with creative entrepreneurs and startups, one thing is simplicity helps to make it a thing that you do.
Yeah.
And this plus delta was so incredibly simple. And there's a nuance there that I really liked, and it's in the delta.
Yeah.
You'll notice that it's a plus what went well, and then what you change, not what sucked, right? It's ever so subtle, but framing maybe things that sucked, framing it in a different way as far as what could we change about it, forces you to think about it in a healthy, productive way versus just sitting there and bashing a certain aspect, hopefully not, but a person or whatever. But it's thinking about it in a positive, constructive way, because that's how you move forward with this stuff. Think you don't necessarily just harp on how bad it went. You think about and you work on how to improve it. That's you're leaning into it, right? You're being an active participant, versus someone just yelling on the sidelines, which actually I think plays in nicely to the 2 goals that you were talking about, leaning in when it comes to, yes, your own time off, your own self-care, but also to the diversity aspect, right? Which is something that has definitely been, at the top of the list when it comes to 2020 things, which is the simplest way to put it going on. Make it a reality, think about it, and find ways that you can actually make it kind of real and impactful for your business. So David J. Neff, I want to thank you so much for, again, punching that ticket again. Next time, either I see you or I send you something, I will include a free topping of Butterfinger or gummy bears, depending on, how I'm feeling. Okay. Where can people find the Weird Homes Tour?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm at Dave I Am on Twitter. David J. Neff on LinkedIn. And then you can find my business that my wife and I run and kind of almost, I think we have 140 unique and wild and wonderful homes from all over the world now in our online community. And you can find that at weirdhomestour.com. Instagram is Weird Homes Tour and our YouTube channel, which is Weird Homes Tour as well. I think we just hit 1,400 subscribers on YouTube. So we're excited to get people there and kind of watching our weekly updates around that.
Yeah, be sure, check out the website, but go check them out on YouTube. We are, we're working on building that out. And, really, as someone who has helped you with that strategy, helped you with all that, it's been such a joy to see the growth there. So, if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, please go check out some of their videos. Weird Homes Tour. You can just search it and you'll find it, and subscribe and check out some of their videos. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm super excited to keep that going. So with that, we end this episode. Unless, David, do you have any last really smart words to end on?
I just want you, Ross, for this Halloween to watch 5 movies. I'm going to text you.
Oh my God.
You don't have to do a marathon. I know that might be too much for you. But that's kind of my challenge to you.
Do you know that I can't even watch like 2 dramatic shows back to back. Like I can't, you don't understand what a nervous Nelly I am. This might actually, you need to tell Shelly, your wife, also, just pass this along. This is also kind of why, aside from being a hermit, even without COVID stuff, I was kind of scared to come to your Halloween party when I got the prestigious invite last year. Please don't not invite me. But now I may in a year work up the bravery to attend. I'm just a nervous Nelly. I don't know.
I'm going to give you Hocus Pocus as one of the 5.
Okay, thank goodness.
Right.
Okay, I got to sandwich that in the middle, or I'm going to watch it between each movie. It's going to be like one of those Oreos that are just stacked up super high.
That's right.
And Hocus Pocus will be the filling in between each one. So David J. Neff, please connect with him online. And I would also say, more importantly, David, just to let you know, connect with Weird Homes Tour, follow them on Instagram,
please
subscribe on YouTube. And until next episode, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. You got to keep pedaling. See you then.
Thanks for listening to Tripod. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. Show notes can be found at tripodpodcast.com. Connect with Tricycle Creative on social media at Hello Tricycle, and learn more about how we can help you with your marketing at tricycle-creative.com.